Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the night, Ant Holleufer. Hello everybody, and welcome to the second ever episode of the Ant Holleufer Ant Show. Hello and welcome to you. Yeah, you from last time. I do remember you. So I must say, being back here is definitely great. But I need to get in the zone like I was last time. But while we wait to get into the zone, let me introduce this episode. What are we gonna see today? Well, when I initially started ant keeping, I was new, and there were things I didn't know. I think you had that feeling as well. And the thing is, if you have some things you don't know, and you want to learn them, how do you learn the things you don't know? Well, I know how you can solve that. Make a video with different YouTubers saying what they wish they knew before started ant keeping. And that is the topic for today. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's show. A show where we talk about the things the ant YouTubers wish they knew. So just like last time, I must say before we start the show for real, that all of these creators have some amazing videos over on their own channels. And this is just a small bit of how creative they are. So I would like to say to all of you, please go over and check their channels out. Right after this video, of course, you have to see this show first. And with that being said, I think we should start the show for real. So let me introduce you guys to the first creator of this show. So this man is a man that has inspired me to make a setup that has just been empty since the day I made it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you do, good boy. So, to all of those who don't know what setup I'm talking about, I made a leaf cutter setup a while back. And due to a little thing called a pandemic, I'm sadly not able to get my leaf cutter colony. So, to get away from this sad subject, the man who inspired me to make a leaf cutter setup is a man called the Colonialist. And you know what, guys? We make a podcast together. But that's not a topic for right now. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the first guy of the night, JB, aka the Colonialist.
Woot woot! I made it. I made it to the Ant Holleufer show. I'd like to thank my mum, my missus, my kids, and my aunts, and everyone that follows. I'm Ants and the Colonialist, a keeper of creatures, explorer of all things Formicidae. I do a lot of research, and I've learnt a lot of lessons from many mistakes. But getting started is a hurdle of its own, and there's many things that I wish that I knew before I started keeping ants. Especially this, the importance of controlling and balancing their diet, and how to properly portion size for a founding colony. Did you know that feeding a high protein diet to most ant species can crash or even kill a founding colony? Did you know that you could feed too much protein, but you can never feed too much carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are sugars. The main sugars consist of sucrose and fructose, but make sure that you don't feed any sweeteners such as aspartame because those are toxic to your ants. These are my personal methods to measure up the amount of protein to feed my colony. So normally when I have founding colonies, I like to use fruit flies as my primary feeder because they're easy, they don't have an exoskeleton, and the ants can consume the entire body. The secondary method of measurement is simply to look at the size of your queen's gaster and use that as a reference to portion size your portion of protein. This is the best feeding regime that I have found. Once every 14 days to feed your queen a fruit fly or a gaster-sized portion of protein. The next 14 days to feed your queen a portion of carbohydrates, so that's sugar or honey mixed up with some water and put on a little tray, a piece of baking paper or some tin foil, and then removed once she's done. Always remove the food within the first 24 to 48 hours. Semi-claustral queens, these are queens that have the need to hunt for their food, have a slightly different regime. What you want to do is rotate this regime every 7 days, so feed them bit of protein on the first week, and then some carbohydrates the second week, protein on the third week, and carbohydrates on the fourth. So they have 4 feeding times over 1 month, and they should be in a tubs and tubes setup, something ideally where the queen can go and forage and hunt for herself. Always remember this simple rule. You want a high carb, low protein diet, and you want to scale the protein simply to your queen and the amount of larvae that you have. So I don't know if I mentioned before, but the best way to do it is that a fruit fly or a gaster-sized portion of protein, 1 piece will feed 2 larvae. So then you want to count the amount of larvae that you have and divide out the amount of protein that you need to feed the colony to size, because you don't need any protein to feed your workers unless they are a specific species where the workers also produce eggs and consume protein. But I would create an entire episode on this wonderful Ant Holleufer show, and he's been very kind having me on and very patient while I'm overrunning the time on his episode as much as I possibly can to pass on as much information as I possibly can to you lovely people. If you're into ant keeping and want to get into ant keeping, of course, check out the podcast that features myself, Alex from Ant Holleufer, Hood from Ant's Hood, and Jake from My Living World's Ants. Sorry, he's just going to cheekily throw that in there. I got so many more wishes that I could pass on to the people that they should know when they start ant keeping. Come on, Alex, give me more time. I better pass you back on to the host, whose ants colonies boast the most. Hey, Ant Holleufer.
So thank you, JB, for that little shameless plug for the podcast. You know, I did do one right before you. I don't know why you didn't. Didn't you watch the video? I mean, I just talked about it right before you. But you know what? Thank you no matter what. It's always good with a little shameless plug. And you know what? There's a link for the podcast in the description. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, because we are talking about things we wish we knew before started ant keeping. That's a long sentence. But before we talk about that, I've often wondered when I'm standing here in the studio, you know, the Ant Holleufer Ant Show studio. It has a smell, I think. Now, this is definitely not something I'm not quite sure of. I think everything has a smell. Even your place where you are sitting right now have a smell. You just don't realize it. And this place definitely have a smell. But you know what? We're not here to talk about how things smell. Instead, I'm gonna introduce the next man on the show. So he's a little comic on his own channel, and that's always good. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the next creator, TheUrbanAntKeeper.
Hello, fellow ant keepers. This is TheUrbanAntKeeper, and I'm on the wrong channel. Wait, hold on. I think I'm on the Ant Holleufer Ant Show. Anyway, I want to tell you people what I wished I had known before I started ant keeping. Number 1, be patient, you stupid idiot. If your first colonies or queens are dying, then try doing nothing. I'm serious. Not constantly looking at your colony is one of the easiest things that you can do to de-stress your queen. A non-stressed queen is a happy queen, and a happy queen will lay more eggs and she won't eat them. Once you've mastered patience, there will still be colonies that die, sometimes without reason. At this point, I said to myself, why are they dying? I'm not stressing them out, and I'm feeding them the right balance of proteins, carbohydrates, and moisture. Death is a natural part of, well, nature. And sometimes you just have to accept that not every colony will make it. Some queens are infertile, some don't have enough reserves to feed their first workers, some queens carry parasites. I could carry on for ages, but just know this. Don't beat yourself up too much over a colony's death. Sometimes it's just out of your hands.
So thank you, TheUrbanAntKeeper, and I was sure we had a smell. I can just... It's so clear that this show has its own smell. So before we get on with the show, it is very important for me to say that all the links to all of these guys' channels are in the description, together with a little timestamp. So if everything works well, you'll see a little timestamp. So which creator are the next creator, you can see if you want to. But you know, it's better if you don't, because else it ruins the surprise. And we don't want the surprise to be ruined in this amazing show. So the next guy I'm gonna introduce is another guy who actually has a lot of humor. He doesn't show it in his videos though, but he has. And this guy has a crazy Nicobarensis colony. A Camponotus Nicobarensis colony for all of those who don't know. So he's also one of our fellow podcast members. And he is known as Ants Hood. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Ants Hood.
Hello ladies and gents, this is Ants Hood, and today I'm more than happy to help out my good friend Alex in his new video where I wish I knew about nests when I first started out. I mean, the world of nests is so confusing because there's so many reputable people out there, like Ants Canada. Everyone that gets into the business knows about them, but then you've got like your white tongue and your plastic ones like this Ant Boy one here, or just a plain white tongue one like this one here. But then you've also got plastic ones or 3D printed ones like this one here. Oh wait, no, there's acrylic as well. Acrylic? Wow, this seems good. What about this acrylic and wood one? It seems really good. And there's so many different brands of nests out there, I even get confused. So what did I do? Well, I thought to myself, there's some reputable sellers out there. I'll go to them and then I'll buy one of their nests, because if it costs a lot of money, it's got to be good, right? Right? Well, no. This nest was so terrible. This is the only picture I've got of it because I've chucked it in the bin. I did do a review of it. It's on my channel. Go check it out if you want. The truth of the matter is, I just didn't know what I was doing, and I thought chucking money at it would make it better. And finally, my long-winded point is, it's not about the nest you get, it's about your ants. What do your ants need? What environment do they need? What humidity do they need? If they're high humidity, then a white-tongue nest is probably ideal. If there's something like Camponotus or Messers where they don't really need high humidity, then an acrylic nest might be ideal. It's all about knowing your ants and then seeking advice. But here's the biggest point that I can give to any new starter. Don't be in a rush to get your ants into a nest. If they're in a test tube and they've got a couple of workers, keep them in the test tube. And if you're worried about them being in a test tube because you can't see that interaction, by all means, get a little outworld attached to that test tube. You can then feed them without constantly disturbing the test tube and stressing the queen out, because you can put the food in the outworld and you've got the interaction, because then, like I am doing here, I can watch them dismantling the food in the outworld, which is what I love to do. Now I've blabbed on for long enough now, so I'll hand you back to Alex and I'll say bye-bye for now.
So thank you, Ants Hood. Something that's really important is, as he said, patience, because this hobby is a slow start and faster. But something that's always important to have in life is patience, especially while you are building some crazy stuff. The next creator we have here on the show is a man I love and also hate a little bit, just because he has that patience while building cool ant stuffs. And I just don't. You know, when I'm building ant stuff, I kind of rush through the whole thing, and I have to make a fail video on YouTube after that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, good boy, you're a long-time subscriber. I'm referring to my white tongue nest I made last year. But that's not what we're gonna talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, the next creator is called AntsVienna.
Okay, since I am known for this, here we go. Hello and welcome to AntsVienna. Wait, no, actually welcome to Ant Holleufer. Thank you for inviting me to the show. So, I was asked to make a short video on something I wish I knew back when I started ant keeping. Like many of you, guys and girls out there, I had my first contact with ants in my childhood. By watching all those ants disappear underground, I've always wondered, how does their nest, namely the part you don't get to see in the wild, actually look like? We call them ant farms, and they come in all possible shapes and sizes, like ants do. I, for one, love being creative and trying out new things, so some of the ant farms I build have experimental features, others have vibrant, contrasting colors, and some let the ants dig their own tunnels, just like they do in the wild. Therefore, it's only natural for an ant keeper to want a nice ant farm, also called a formicarium, to put their ants in. But what if I told you that what I wish I knew back when I started was not to put ants in a formicarium too soon? Experience has taught me that introducing an ant colony to a new environment, like an ant farm, too soon can not only slow down your pet's growth, but even kill them at times. How, you ask? In a big, unknown space, the ants may either first not find the food you provide them, or second, start filling up chambers with their organic waste, which coupled with you watering the ant farm may lead to mold buildup that could eradicate a founding ant colony if not dealt with properly. So, my advice to beginner ant enthusiasts is to leave your colony in their test tube as long as they need to, and only move them into an ant farm when the ants are ready for it. As a bonus tip, I'm gonna tell you that since ants come in many shapes and sizes, the timing may differ, but as a rule of thumb, small species, like Lasius for example, will do fine when they have 20 plus workers. Middle-sized species, like Formica, may do well with 10 plus workers. And finally, bigger species, like Campanotus, may even be fine with only 5 to 6 workers when moving them into a formicarium. I hope this advice proves helpful to many of you guys who are just starting up with the ant keeping hobby. If you want to know more, feel free to drop by at my channel anytime, and don't forget to subscribe to Ant Holleufer for making this show possible.
So thank you, AntsVienna, for that little video. I still love you and hate you a little bit just because you had that bit more patience while building nests that I don't. And that is a brilliant way on to our next creator. Because if you're building an actual formicarium, you shouldn't really just build off on a random thought. You should have a good design and a good flowers inside. If you're having a humid species, you need to have some flowers that can have a high humidity. And you know, I have a man who knows exactly how to do that. And I asked him, did he want to join the show? And of course, he said, thank you, I will join the show. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the next creator. He is known for his crazy big formicarium filled up with plants and some ants inside, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for AntsCapes.
What's up guys, Brian at AntsCapes here. Now the first thing I want to go through today is patience, and then the second thing is research. Now research is actually more important than the first, but the first actually comes in with the second, because you need enough patience to do enough research to get, you know, the result that you want. Now, for example, if you're making a setup which has a lot of plants which prefer high humidity, wet soils, things like that, then you would need to research what species you want to have within that soil, and also at the same time you need to see what requirements those plants have. I remember from my own experiences going to libraries and buying books on plants, terrarium books and all sorts of things, and before I was actually allowed, when I was younger, to get a fish tank or something like that for the hobby, my father insisted you have to go to the library first, do your research, and then you can buy what you want. Now the reason patience is just as important as research is because you need to make sure you have the patience to research as much as you can about that species, about that specific thing you're trying to do. I ran into a block with this myself lately, where I wanted to keep a setup for ants which contained things like, you know, succulent plants, cacti, things like that. Now the difficulty in that is that succulent plants like to go through dry spots here and there, similar to cacti. And obviously ant species don't necessarily like that because they require humidity in the soil. So then you would then have to research species of ants that go through drought, things like that, and they do have species which are used to drought and things. So it's just tying all of that together. You're always going to make mistakes, so patience is key. You're always going to have errors where you think, I wish I'd done something different, or you wish you'd tweaked it, but that's what it's all about. It's all a massive learning curve for everyone. Even me now, I honestly badger Ant Holleufer, loads of other people within the hobby almost every single day with questions, because it's always good to ask. You need to know. The more you know, the better it becomes, and the better, regardless of what you're making, the better the project result is going to end in. But other than that, and I've pretty much covered everything, just make sure that when you are looking at something, patience. And this also does include, actually, before you put a colony inside a natural setup. As you know from my side, I'll always build natural setups. I never really do white hung acrylic nests, nothing like that. But that's just my preference. But it's about researching a bioactive setup and knowing how to apply that in that setup yourself for what you're keeping. But as always from me, peace and love. I'm out.
So thank you, Ryan, or should I say AntsCapes, because that's your real name. But your real name is Ryan, but your name took name. That's not what we're gonna talk about right now. So guys, before I introduce the next creator, my girlfriend made this awesome picture of my logo with paint, and she actually made another really nice picture, or painted a picture. And I'm a little bit disappointed, guys, because when this started appearing in the background, nobody really noticed. So yeah, my girlfriend was very sad. But let's get on with the video and let's call out the next creator. So the next man on the show has 2 YouTube channels. Not only does he have 2 channels, he also don't only keep ants, he also have wasps, I think, maybe it's bees. You know, I don't really know the difference. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for AntsCzech.
Hi, I'm an ant keeper from Czechia, and I make both Czech and English videos about ants, wasps, and soon about other animals. Thanks for having me. What do I wish I knew before I started ant keeping? Just like many of my new followers and subscribers, I had no idea about all the ant keeping communities on the internet. It takes just a few seconds to type in ant keeping, and you'll find many ant channels, Facebook groups, Instagram pages, Reddits, forums, and many of them have their Discord servers. The ant keeping community is really big. You just have to find it and ask your question. Just like on my Discord, when someone asks, they get a lot of helpful opinions from other ant keepers. Ant keeping is a great hobby, and it's even better if you have other ant keepers with which you can chat about it.
So thank you, AntsCzech, for that little video. So something that's really important while starting YouTube is to don't lose your faith and don't lose your hope. When I started back in 2018, I struggled with keeping my hopes and keeping my work spirit on. So it's always important to take that extra time to watch the younger generation of YouTubers. And the next YouTuber is a newer YouTuber, but that doesn't mean that he's not worth anything. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm just gonna give it up for Myrmidon Nation.
How's it going, guys? My name's Vern. I've been keeping ants for about a little over a year and a half now. Kind of got into it when I was younger. I would always order the ant farm kits, and my ants would always show up dead. And a couple of years back, I just got to thinking about it again. My son was really interested in ants, and I just dived right in and kind of went full bore. So a friend of mine asked me to explain what I wish I would have known before I got into ant keeping, or right in the beginning of it. And the thing I think I wish I would have known is kind of people's ethical views on ant keeping. So like one, for instance, would be catching wild colonies. in my experience, when I kind of got into it, that seemed like the easy route to go, and you were able to do it, and in my area at least. And I got kind of a mixed reaction from people. Some people thought it was okay if it was like not as rare of a species, or if they had a good population in the area. And some other people just said absolutely not. You know, there's no hard work in that. To get a queen and start your own colony takes a lot of work. So that was one thing. And also, I prefer to raise all my own colonies from a queen. Whether I purchased her or caught her, I do like the challenging aspect of raising a colony from a single queen. And the second thing I wish I learned is kind of falls into that is like catching too many queens, or, you know, showing off a real big catch. And certain species fly by the thousands sometimes in certain areas. And so I think, you know, even if you're not harming the population and you're catching a lot of ants, maybe not show it off so much, or definitely don't catch just to sell. But yeah, just kind of when you get into ant keeping, I wish I would have got a little more knowledge on the ethical aspect of it, and kind of, you know, what people look down upon, just so you can fit into the community better. And when you fit into a community better, you can learn better from everyone. Everyone's more willing to give you information and kind of help you along your way, which a lot of people did. So I'm very thankful for that. Awesome, thank you.
Okay, hello guys, we're back again. Sorry for that, I didn't know we would be back so soon. Thank you, Myrmidon Nation, for that video. So the next man I'm gonna introduce in this show is the last man, sadly. But that doesn't mean he's any less important than all of the rest of these creators. And he has actually inspired me to do something I have wanted for the longest time, though I haven't done it yet. That's why I watch his channel instead. Have you ever wondered if you have a bunch of ants, and instead of putting their setup next to the outworld, just take the setup and put it inside the outworld? So this is what we call an open concept ant farm, and that is just that you take a big outworld and then just put the nest inside. So they're not really in any tubes or anything. And that's what this man is really known for. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for AquaAntz.
The number one thing I wished I knew before I started keeping ants was to not blindly trust everything I read or heard about ants. In the past, I made the mistake of doing what everyone else was doing instead of experimenting on my own. As ant keeping is still a relatively new hobby, there are still a lot of misinformation or errors even on the most trusted websites. Some examples of important facts that not many people know are test tubes not always being the best setup for ants, being a poor protein source for ants, how not all ants require daily feeding, how toothpicks and other man-made decorations could be poisonous for ants, and lastly, how hand washing and proper hygiene can improve the cleanliness of your ant colonies. So my best advice to all people who are starting to keep ants is to join groups or forums and follow people who have specific knowledge on the topic. It is better to learn from a guy who lives in the same area as you, keeps the same species as you, who has only kept ants for 1 year, than a guy who has kept ants for 10 years but on the opposite side of the globe. And lastly, test and experiment whatever you've learned. As Bruce Lee once said, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add whatever is uniquely your own. Anyways, my name is Morgan, your 14-year-old ant keeper who has a low percentage of people subscribed to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Thank you, AquaAntz, for that video. You were the last man. And that means something. The show is about to end, sadly. But that's how it is sometimes. The great things must end. Luckily. I'm already planning episode 3 and 4. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been the end of episode 2 of the Ant Holleufer Ant Show. I hope you liked it just as much as the episode 1. I know I did, at least. I did up to this point where I had to record. Now I have to edit, and I don't want to edit because that takes a lot of work. But then again, I want to edit because it's quite funny and I want to see all of your reactions. And by the time that you see this, I have already edited the whole video and it is time to put it on YouTube. And you know it is on YouTube because else you wouldn't see it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say once again, thank you to all the creators who have helped me. Just like episode 1, I can recommend every single one of them and I subscribe to every single one of them. Guys, thank you for watching the episode 2 of the Ant Holleufer Ant Show. Do you want some special topics that I should reach out to some YouTubers? Leave in the comments below. So another thing, maybe I didn't mention your favorite YouTuber, because maybe I don't know your favorite YouTuber, at least Ant YouTuber. We can't take all of your favorite YouTubers. We need the Ant YouTubers. So if you have any people I should contact for the next episode, leave them in the comments below. And else guys, that has been the end of this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video.